with Renee.
Yo. We wait all week and all day for more. Saturdays with Renee.
What's up, world? Welcome to episode 81 of Saturdays with Renee, featuring Renee Johnston. I'm Jared Ball. Welcome, everybody. Renee, how you doing?
I am. I got a phone call. So I got up this morning and I went to Newark because Pop was doing a thing. And this worked out really well that we decided to go live late and not, and we weren't able because I didn't have to stay there. It gave me the perfect excuse to have to roll out and come home. But on the way home, I got a phone call, and I'll have to tell you the story when we end today because it's definitely worth explaining to you the madness that's happening. But I will just share that one of my responses was, I just need you, and this is me talking to someone else, and I said, I just need you to understand that if people want us to enter the fuck around and find out phase of this, we can do that. And you should let them know that me, Renee, I am perfectly happy to enter the fuck around and find out phase. So that's where I'm at right now, trying my best to decide how irritated I should be with the stupidity of other people.
Well, I look forward to hearing that. I may have to hear about it on the run because the day is gotten pretty packed all of a sudden. So I'm going to have to.
We'll have time.
More or less.
There will be time to circle back and tell you this story because people really be wildin'. And I just don't understand how people have enough time on their hands to do dumb shit. I'm like, don't you have other things to do?
Well, apparently not, because there's a lot of that going on around. But as we welcome folks in and invite them to like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon, more information at blackliberationmedia.org, all linked in the show description. Let me just also say that the reason we are live and late and is the same reason I wasn't able to get on the remix yesterday. So my apologies to the remix crew, to the chat, to the platform, to the comrades that had to cover. But it was just a mess of traveling Wi-Fi that I literally could not even get in the studio. So
I played backup for you yesterday. I jumped on.
So thank you to you as well.
Hung out with Amber, my girl. That's my girl.
And so big salute to all of you, and apologies again. And then and I'll talk more about it tonight, but not being able to pre-record yesterday allowed me to break bread with Kamau. So I did get to see Kamau in Atlanta yesterday. Kamau. And Malcolm X. Salute to Andrew Douglas, Professor Andrew Douglas, and the good people at Morehouse. I had never been to Morehouse before. And I'm going to have many more conversations starting tonight around what the event was, which was really the Black University versus the HBCU. Oh. And can MMT offer up some interesting, not solutions, but new challenges that can be posed to the university. So it was an interesting symposium yesterday, and where that was the discussion. And I look forward to more of that. So salute to all of them, and the Morehouse men.
I actually literally forgot that's where you were going to be yesterday, because I have an old student at Morehouse who it would not shock me if he was in the room, and I should have recalled that that's where you were going to be, so I could make the attempt to see if he was going to be in the room, so I could send him to say hello to you, because he is such a good kid, and he is a joy. And I'm so mad at myself right now, because I would have loved to be like, I need you to go up to Dr. Ball and say, Dr. Ball, I used to be Miss Johnston's student.
Well, I don't know what his summer's like, but I'll be back there again this summer for the American Association of University Professors Conference, where I'm still trying to work with folks and support efforts to build some collective bargaining responses and faculty governance efforts. But yeah, it was very interesting, and I got to read a bunch of stuff, a lot of Douglas's work on cooperatives in the HBCU, and some of the history of the HBCU and the history of the Black university concept, which is very different. Something that has a more liberatory goal in mind, and to see what the challenges are to all of this. So much more to come on all of that.
There's a lot happening.
There is a lot happening, and it was also wild because we were in the Hall of Fame, in the Dr. King Chapel and center there, and of course it's always frustrating to see so much of a public representation and symbolism, symbolic affinity for Dr. King, and a lot of his politics don't get brought up. But he's in the hall we were in that Hall of Fame. You see all these pictures of all these luminaries, and it's it is the Black excellence contradiction, because you would have a Du Bois and an Asa Hilliard and a Cheikh Anta Diop, and then you would also have an Oprah and a Spike Lee. Right. And Andy Young. So it's yeah, but it was a good time. It was a good time. Like I said, it was nice to see the campus for the first time. And although I really do struggle with, I felt the absence of the feminine energy on campus, and I'm not a fan.
So it's funny. So obviously this was decades ago, but I did visit Spelman, because that was one of the colleges that I applied to. It's actually the only college I did not get into of the 6 that I applied to.
Interesting.
I didn't like it anyway, so it was fine, because I would not have gone. I was not a fan when I was there. But I'm trying to remember, because I feel like they, they share classes, Spelman and
I'm
Morehouse,
sure there's more overlap.
So I'm just.
No, I know it's not, and you're right there in Atlanta. It's not like people, and of course there are women on campus as faculty and staff and whatever. But it was just weird to be in a room of except for a few faculty, just men. And I'm not, I'm good with that, more power to him. If that works, more power to him. But I I just Spelman knew you'd be in trouble. Exactly.
The jokes.
That is a good parallel storyline.
It would be. Yeah. It just wasn't for me. I just Mm-mm. No.
Yeah, my oldest got in, but
they also don't get no money.
That was the main thing more than anything. We just couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that's
because both Hampton and Howard quickly got scratched off my potential list because
Howard
they didn't give me no money. I was like, okay, so I can go to Syracuse or Boston for practically free, but I gotta pay. Yeah, no, I'm good.
And pay exorbitantly for the Black excellence experience. But again, I get it, and at the same time, I get it. I get it. The feeling of being in an oasis. The Black fantasy, you seeing all the, and then it was, like some sort of orientation day too for incoming students. So you saw the parents and you saw the people, like old heads with their frat sweaters on and, hobbling up the street, like with their Kappa sweaters on, So I get it. I mean, I get it. But
I always wonder, and every now and again I think about like, would it have been, I don't know, like that experience. Like I look now at the students that I know who are currently on those campuses at HBCUs and understanding that, revolution and liberation are not a priority. And so like, I wondered to myself, like, is there a true benefit to being surrounded by your people if you're not being expressly taught to liberate your people?
I mean, I think I've always felt like, I was never an HBCU student, but I've always felt like just seeing and watching and listening to students tell their experiences all these years that I keep saying the 600 Black population at Frostburg State out of about 6,000 total students, I think felt more cohesive and unified than what I often hear described by students at an all Black Morgan State campus. So I've thought that there may be something to that when you're more noticeably in the minority again. It imposes some sort of, or creates some sort of cohesion that is valuable and enjoyable. I don't know, but in terms of the politics, I beyond that point of just sort of being in the I mean, I tend to look at it in my own experience. Like I like being on an all Black campus. I like going on campus and you just see it's just Black people all day. I think that's pretty cool, but it's not a revolutionary experience. Right. So after that immediate fact of me saying that,
right.
Yeah, it's not a different world. Right. It's so no, I don't know. So again, the benefit would just be that, like some sort of social, I don't know, but politicized, and Morgan in particular, I think there are differences, but Morgan feels more depoliticized than I think even Howard or I don't even know what would be a more politicized HBCU at this point, but yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. It's all very tricky, and I always forget. I used to come to Morgan a few times when I was in college. I had a friend that I grew up with who was at Morgan and ended up working for NASA, and they used to come to campus a couple of times. But it was bad. Like it was not a pretty. This was pre-you. Like
oh yeah, back in the
This is back when you got on Morgan's campus and you'd be like, oof, this is where you go to school.
Yeah, back in the back day, I tried to party up there a couple times and was like, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was rough.
Yeah, now it's a little bit more sedity. They got a couple more dollars and but it was interesting. The same problem still exists. Like there was all the same discussions about campus relationship to the surrounding Black community,
Right.
One of the students even said that they're told upon arrival, don't go into the community around campus, like don't leave campus.
Right.
And of course Kamau was over there saying that's the part you're supposed to be in.
Right.
It's like,
I mean,
you know,
while I was at Syracuse, all of our, like the Caribbean Student Association, the African Student Association, like there were all these groups that used to do things in the community, tutoring and all kinds of stuff. Like that was kind of part of the experience. Like, being in the community and doing things in the community, that was part of the experience. And so it's interesting that,
that should be the goal.
And in Wakanda too. That's it's Wakanda, so you would think.
So, but again, that's the point of Wakanda. Wakanda don't open its doors to save anybody. And that's their point. They're saying don't leave Wakanda. They're like, leave the rest of that
Facts.
Black continent alone.
Facts.
So
it's all very interesting.
But I saw you looking into the white campuses. I peeped on the run sheet and I saw big white universities on the run sheet.
Listen.
So
look, this is so just so everyone understands. So what was actually supposed to happen today?
Yeah, right.
Actually, was you all were going to get a pre-taped conversation, and the conversation was going to be about Dr. Todd Barrow's book, and we were gonna discuss his book on Roosevelt Franklin, the Muppet. And we had invited Ntume to join because when we talked with him briefly about it, the chat was like, Ntume should be involved. And so we dragged Ntume in. And then Jared couldn't get on the internet. And so we couldn't pre-record and have that conversation. But what this also meant was that at like 1:00 in the morning, your girl was on the internet trying to make sure that there was enough stuff on the run sheet that we could talk about.
And when Renee says I couldn't get on the internet, I've literally not seen this before. I could, it took forever, but I could get into the back of the studio here, but I couldn't put myself into the thing. It would just spin. Like, and then I kept getting this warning that said you don't have stable internet, and I'm like, yeah. So anyway, it was a mess.
Good. It's all good. So, but the upside though is that the chat will then get Todd Burrows and Ntume and now Geechee, because apparently he's gonna read it, and we're gonna get a full review crew plus Todd.
And it's going to be live.
And it's going to be live. So I feel like this works out, it's it'll work out in the end to the benefit of everybody, I think,
And folks, if you go to drumsintheglobalvillage.com, you can get to the links from Todd's website to get to his novel, which is free online. And you could even read up on the dark side of Sesame Street.
Right.
And what Todd has done is it's dope.
Yeah.
Like, Todd can write, and the little thing he does here with real life and this Muppet dude.
It's wild. It's wild. Like if you read that book and you did not know that it was the story of a Muppet.
Right.
Right. Going into it, it might be a while before you realize, oh, it's the Muppet.
Right. But they should do, Sesame Street and them should contact Todd. He did them a favor.
I agree.
He gave them some IP they could develop into a whole Marvel-like universe. That's what I was thinking. We'll come back to that, especially since I started watching Andor season 2, by the way.
No, don't listen. So the plan was to start it on Tuesday. I told you, my husband's in Cali. He's on his way back. He flew out on Wednesday. So the plan was to watch it on Tuesday, but the child had too much homework.
These
And so
daggone children and their
I
desire
know,
and need to
I
be
know.
parented is so annoying, son.
And
It's like, son,
so
can't you just figure this out? You know what I mean? Like, figure this
facts.
thing out so I can go watch
So
my
we couldn't
series.
so we couldn't start it because we didn't want to start it while we needed to let him do his homework. And so that'll be on the agenda for this weekend.
Wait a minute. What's up, Jared? Are you saying, wait a minute, Roosevelt Franklin was a hip hop group? Is this for real?
Really?
Jared knows his hip hop. I've never heard of it though. I'm not sure if that he's
Yeah,
saying
he
yeah.
says yeah.
Wow. I don't know if Todd
We
knows
also,
about
you know
that.
what? Since J Dub's watching and stuff, we need to bring him back on a Saturday to join, and we can chop it up about, I don't know, whatever. Jared can pick.
Yeah, let us know.
The Jareds can pick. Let us know, Jared, when you're free on a Saturday, so we can get you up here and we can chop it up.
I will say, somebody said, speaking of spoilers, the reason Saturday Night Live is going to be a little early tonight is because we're going to see Sinners tonight. So I'm just letting folks know.
I think we might go see it tomorrow.
I have not been hit up about a movie, maybe ever like this. More people want me to see this movie and think that it's going to break my Vernon philosophy than maybe ever. So
that's funny because
there we go. Lead Clinton hating in the chat. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Hate. That's what I'm talking about. Lead hates on me enough. I was like, turn your Sauron eye somewhere else, Lead. Yes.
There we go.
No spoilers. Lead.
Well,
We're not going to spoil it.
Neither of us have seen it, so I can't.
I haven't seen a thing, and I've avoided beyond the headlines. I've avoided everything. I haven't seen one thing, read one thing, other than people telling me, "Oh, you got to see it, Jared. You got to see it."
Yeah, it's on my. I'm hoping we'll be able to get to it tomorrow to watch. So I can, but I didn't realize until, so I ended up not watching it because I was like, you know what, let me not give myself anything going.
You talking about Andor?
No. Sinners. I did not realize that the dude behind Sinners was also behind all the
Ryan
other.
Coogler.
Like I just didn't.
There can only be one.
Yeah, I don't keep names.
Tyler
I don't keep names in my head like that for certain things. And so I missed that memo completely. And so, he did that interview on Democracy Now! And I got through her saying Judas and the Black Messiah. And I was like, oh, stop. It's like, let me not watch this.
Listen, I've been consistent. If folks go back, if they care, I said after Fruitvale Station, I predicted his whole career, and it's written. I wrote it. I wrote a little commentary on it so that just so forever I would be able to say I told you so. And I said the same thing I said about Manning Marable's Malcolm X and Peniel Joseph's work on Malcolm X. I said in terms of cinema, Ryan Coogler is about, basically I was saying he's about to have a long career because he can tell a story and tell it so that white folks have, particularly white folks with money, have no problem with these stories.
Right.
And I thought Fruitvale Station was very revealing.
The line. Right. That's always the line. If you have a lot of rich white people co-signing, like I feel like it's an automatic Vernon philosophy. I just can't, it's automatic. I mean, but we'll see. But can you have to send, so then you have to put that thing that you wrote after Fruitvale Station in our chat. So we make sure we read it.
Okay.
Before we do our review crew. So the review crew is going to be on Sinners because everybody's going to watch it. And then we'll do a review. All
right, there it is.
So
all right, I know I took you again away from.
Look, I'm good. This is what we do. That's what we do. It's all good. So where were you able to read any of the stuff on
No,
the run sheet?
the only thing I read was the topics. The only thing I read at all was the MIT report that you have here.
Right. Which is that's been on the run sheet forever because I keep saying we should talk about
there
it.
it is. So I finally caught up to it.
Okay. So that report is a good one. It's interesting.
But we can go wherever you want to go.
So since we're all right, so because MIT is also on this list of things that are happening still with regard to having the audacity to say that genocide is not a good thing. I don't really know much about this Kalani, the musician, this whole thing that happened at Cornell, but I thought this was interesting. So Cornell apparently does this big concert. And wait, are we starting with MIT?
Oh, my bad. I thought that's where you were going. I was trying to be on cutting edge. I was trying to be on the cutting edge, but no, go back to where you were going. I'll double back.
So Cornell does this concert every year apparently, and they had Kalani scheduled. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, so you all have to correct me in the chat. Scheduled to be a performer at this concert. And
right. Did, yeah.
And so
okay.
So they canceled it. So I picked the Rolling Stone issue specifically because the headline for Rolling Stone says that she was canceled over pro-Palestinian remarks. Every other headline, this was the first one that I found, and I probably went through like 20 of them, right? Every other headline said that she was canceled for anti-Semitism. And because I am staunchly against this conflation of anti-Zionism, anti-Israel with anti-Semitism, I did not want to make that the prevailing headline that we showed. So I looked until I found the headline that did not say that. And this was the first one that I found, is from Rolling Stone. So essentially, the university announced their concert. Kalani's on the list of performers. And the Zionists came out to say, like, why would you give her space? And she's an anti-Semite, she's anti-Semitic and this, that, the other thing. And their whole basis for calling her anti-Semitic is because she doesn't support genocide. And she thinks the Palestinian people should have their lands. And it's wild, right? But the president released a statement. So the Rolling Stone issue basically just explains the whole thing. What I really found interesting was the statement from the president. So the link next to the Rolling Stone link on the run sheet is the statement that the president, I just highlighted it. I just made it red so you can see it easy on the thing. So this is the statement by the president of Cornell, who made the unilateral decision that he was going to not allow her to perform. So
can I just tell folks, because I am an alumnus of this august institution. Slope Day is a day where there's this big slope on the hill, like a hill, and it's like, I think it's the beginning of the fall semester or something like that, when it's still warm, and everybody goes out and if memory serves, they just sort of hang out and party a little bit and have a day. So just so folks know, I didn't know they had concerts. I don't remember Actually, I don't remember ever participating, but I do know that that's what something like that. So yeah, but sorry, go ahead. Just so folks know what this
I'm
was.
glad you gave that because I've been to Cornell's campus like 3 times, but I have no understanding of anything that happens there. So he sends this notice out. It goes out 3 days ago, and it's to express his reason. And so, the students are the people who pick whatever. But he says, unfortunately, although it was not the intention, the selection of Kalani as this year's headliner has injected division and discord into Slope Day. Wow. For that reason, I am rescinding Kalani's invitation and expect a new lineup for a great 2025 Slope Day to be announced shortly. In the days since Kalani was announced, I have heard grave concerns from our community that many are angry, hurt, and confused that Slope Day would feature a performer who has espoused anti-Semitic, anti-Israel sentiments in performances, videos, and on social media. While any artist has the right in our country to express hateful views, Slope Day is about uniting our community, not dividing it. I have spent the last few days talking privately with many students about Slope Day, and I appreciate the candor they shared. I also spoke with the Student Slope Day Programming Board, who agree that this selection has compromised what is meant to be an inclusive event. Then he goes on to say, I understand that my decision will be celebrated by some and criticized by others. I believe it's the right thing to do. Cornell is an institution where any person can find instruction in any study, and where every person should feel included at the signature social event of the year. Signed, the president. I just want everyone to know that this is the place that Mama D. Tall had to fucking go back to the UK from. Right?
That's
because
it.
They were going to allow the federal government to detain and deport that man at this place, this bastion of space for free discussion and unity. Yo.
No, you're free to share, to speak on anything you like, as long as it is in agreement with those who are in charge.
My head exploded reading that letter. Like the fucking caucasity of it all.
The caucasity, boy. That, that is a very, it's funny. In some of the religious discussions I watch, they talk about the levels of Christology in people's arguments, which, if I understand correctly, is sort of like an attempt to measure how much any given writing is crediting Jesus with the appropriate levels of divinity. And so they'll say sometimes that reading or that gospel has a high level of Christology. And I think we could have something similar for caucasity. That act has a particularly high level of caucasity. But it really, and I forgot the exact weapon system, but I do remember when it was explained to me on my last visit that Cornell had outbid everybody for this elite new Israel partnered weapons, surveillance, some sort of monstrous new technology. So the university the point being that the university was doubling down on its commitment to Israel and anything that could be depicted as anti-Semitic. I saw in one of the stories that you sent that Kehlani was accused of being a problem, in part, I don't know what else she said to have done, but in part because in one of her music videos, they had the keffiyeh and the Palestinian flag in the background.
Yeah.
So that apparently, counts also towards your levels of anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
On the
I mean,
caucasity scale of things. God,
it's just like I read it and I was really like, I mean, it's almost like this is not the place where they allow their students to be hung out to dry if they say like, you know, no genocide. Genocide's not good. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, having a chance to see and to speak with them a little bit, it's the trauma of that Tal and Amandla and others face, not only with the deportation itself, but the threat of it,
Right.
the constant, you're banned from this building, you can't teach your classes, you might get deported. I mean,
You can't, yeah, like you can't even leave your apartment. Like and I really, I hope one day to be able to like have a conversation with Mamadou. Like he doesn't obviously like know me from anywhere or whatever. But the idea that he had to get on a plane and leave the country to avoid basically incarceration, right? Because for whatever people want to call this, like this whole like it's detention thing, it's jail, right? Like it's incarceration. Let's just be clear that you are jailed, right? Like that he had to leave, pack up and leave the country to avoid going to jail for saying we should not be killing off a population of people on the other side of the world.
Well, no, and now there's this whole ongoing discussion, definitely on the more conservative side of things, but where the argument is, well, if you don't have the proper intent, we shouldn't let you in the country in the first place. So like people are going to be they're calling for some sort of pre-screening to make sure that people who show up might not protest, so they should even say like, if during your time here working on your degree, this country ramps up its support of a new genocide, will you protest, exercising what used to be known as your First Amendment right, even as a non-citizen?
Right.
And then if you check off, no, I'll just sit quietly while you then maybe they'll let you in.
Murder, no problem. It's just, I mean, it's crazy. And then the other thing, and this is the third article on that road, that the next article is now read. The thing that also, and we talked about this a little bit last week, that stands out is like, so Cornell is, doing backflips, all kinds of gymnastics to prove how not in agreement they are with the Palestinian movement, right? Like they are totally not aligned with freeing the Palestinian lands, and they are still under fire. So not like I'm having such a struggle, because on one hand it's like you can't save yourself by doing everything that you're doing to silence protests and to silence students and to, like, you're still going to lose over $1 billion in funding, even with everything that you did. Right. But then I have to wonder, like, well, what is it exactly? What is the storyline here that's being built for people who are watching these things play out? Right. Like Cornell is actively silencing any attempts to say like you should defund, you should not be involved. Like Cornell don't want no part of that. They're still losing their funding. So what is the game that's being played with the people? Like, am I making sense? Like, I'm
No,
trying to
yeah.
understand, like, I'm trying to understand, because there's a nuance here that I feel like is really problematic. And I'm not 100% sure what the end goal is. Because if you're doing everything that Cornell is doing, which, I mean, I have not seen Cornell do one thing that would any way, any shape or form indicate that they are allowing people to speak up on behalf of the Palestinian movement, right? And they're still under fire by the government. So what is the real, like, what's really happening?
I mean, more broadly speaking, I think there are some competing interests among the ruling elite. I think that at least some of the goal is to further push everybody, universities included, more to the right, to try to reclaim some of the lost PR damage that the Al-Aqsa flood has caused by pushing everybody forcibly back into. I mean, it's said that Cornell has beefed up its Jewish studies department or division. And so I'm saying, is this, there was no pre-existing desire among students or faculty to advance or like apparently, just in reading that, there was no pre-existing concern that Jewish studies was an underserved element, but
Right.
but here, as part of this broader attempt to just more, not just in terms of Hamas and Palestine, but just more broadly suppress leftward politics and movement, I think that's what all of this is designed to do. And by showing a willingness to attack the most elite and so-called liberal institutions, this right-wing, effort gains more credibility among its own constituencies. So I think that's what I think, at least, is in part what's going on here. I don't think it's anything specific or particular about this subject or this topic or anything else. Obviously, Trump and them don't give a damn about Jews and Israel in any particular, or anti-Semitism as an issue in any meaningful way. So it's I think this was just a usable mechanism. And remember, I think also part of this is to avoid more conversation about what it is that they're doing that's hurting the people that actually voted for them. So a lot of this is, I think, part of that too, that if anybody starts to raise any questions, people can say, well, look, they're attacking these universities, they're getting rid of the DEI hires, and they're getting, scrubbing the databases of anything that Black people might have done for this country, so like they can point to that kind of stuff. Okay. That's at least what I think is what's going on here.
Okay. Yeah, it feels almost like like, all right, y'all went 75% of the way doing things the way facts, doing things the way we want you to do them, but we need you to go 100% of the way and do all of it. And I'm just, I'm still struggling with it a little bit. And, there was some talk about, I think some of these schools were schools that Trump's son didn't get into.
Oh, that's funny. Like,
I don't know if that was rumor or reality or whatever.
But I could see that.
So part of this was like, him going after these schools specifically.
One of my daughter's friends is in one of his classes, Barron's classes at, where does he go? New York? Somewhere. He's in NYU or something like that.
Is he? I have no idea.
One of them schools. She was, so I heard a little bit about his behavior at some allegedly at some orientation thing. This is all second, third, fourth hand, but
Right, right.
and it was just just he was just trying to be like a regular guy and flirt and do all that kind of stuff. So
Interesting. All right, so Chitimacha, when you're finished writing what you're writing, you got to send it to me because I mean, can
we get a
really
teaser?
Yeah, I'm really curious about what is happening behind the curtain, right? Like I feel like there's a lot of things happening that are happening intentionally to create chaos, and then but that's their only purpose really, is to just create chaos, right? Like to just like in this moment we're just going to create this chaos, and then we're going to go do something else that nobody else is actually paying attention to, and that's really what the goal is, right? Is to do that. So like the Politico article, I'm going to turn it blue, the letters. Oh, that's a bad color blue. Hold on, now that's hard to read. There we go.
I got
it. So like things like this, right? So there was this big, rightfully, like people were really talking about how. Now, see, you said you got it, and you went to the wrong article.
That's the wrong one.
Johnston, Rhode Island.
Yeah, that's what I was like. What? But that's the one you turn. That's the.
Well, they're all blue. That's why I realized blue wasn't a good. I highlighted it now. There you go. That one. So, rightfully, as people started to get wind of these like student visa removals, right? And a lot of people were talking about this, they were removing student visas, and they were getting people self-deport. They were snatching people off the street. And now they quietly reversed it all.
Mm-hmm. A wholesale reversal.
A wholesale reversal of the however many hundreds of student visas. I guess it was getting close to 1,000 student visas that they claimed that they were revoking. And so everyone spent a large amount of time, like, and again, I'm not saying they shouldn't have done it. It's not that we should not have been like, wait a minute, y'all just reverse student visas. Like we didn't, right? Like there was nothing, right? And then they quietly undid it. And how many people is still thinking about my student visa might be revoked? You understand what I'm saying? Like they created enough chaos for people to be like, wait a minute. And then they quietly just backed off.
Yeah. I think to your point, to both of our points, that the goal is to create all this chaos, and in some way see what sticks. I mean, even for them creating what it was said there was 100 cases in 23 different states and 50 federal courthouse, something like that.
Yeah.
They're like, all this pushback, which I'm assuming included at least some even Trump appointed federal judges who, if I'm not mistaken, I've heard once or twice have even themselves been saying, hold up, my man. Like, damn, right. There's got to be some formation of some kind of law here somewhere. But then if he loses, it's like, so what? I took up all this time in the news cycle. That's more time. I do not have to have my press secretary or someone else answering questions about working white folks losing jobs and farms and homes and people's retirement packages disappearing and, stocks dropping. It's like, no, look, we were chasing immigrants for a minute.
Right. And And I think that's right. And I think that's what I like. I'm trying to, because we I get yelled at a lot. Like people are really not happy that I'm just not like up in arms about a lot of things. And it's not that I don't think these things are valid and reason to be up in arms. I just want people to understand that I just feel like a lot of this is just a game, right? It's a game of like how much distraction and discord and confusion can we cause, right? And then that's it, right? Like so we'll cause the
I mean, I
confusion
was just thinking, like if you could imagine, like every time you're sitting, in the car, in the kitchen, or wherever you all have gathered with, family or friends, if every time you had a thought, like, whatever what if we, pass legislation to redistribute blah blah blah, or draw down the military, or what if we did this with voting, or whatever, if every time you had a thought, like a team of people with at least some capability and a lot of authority just started running off and doing it, like before you even finished thinking it through, you were like, what if I had a cup of coffee, and then 20 people come running back, they're like, we have Renee's new coffee shop, and it's a chain, and it's going to threaten start, like, it's like, hold up, I was just like, that's kind of how I feel like it is, like Trump's just walking around like, hey, what if we crash this department? And then 20 people run off and start doing it with some measure of authority and minimal capability. That's how
right.
it feels to me, like this is all happening. Like it's not, and then when it doesn't work, he's like, all right, well,
Right. But so the thing that frustrates me, I think, though, is like when that happens, right? Like when the back off happens, it does not get nearly the level of attention that the chaos got. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like how come there aren't multiple people talking about the fact that they reversed this? Because there was not a whole lot of media coverage on the reversal.
Well, that's that old thing, though. When did they release? That's they probably dropped the story like Friday afternoon. Like they slipped things in. I don't know if that's how it happened, but it's been an old thing in journalism where a story, like the headline is "We got him," and then when
Right.
they have to print the whoopsie, it's like on the back end of page 6, and it's like, by the way, we were wrong, and he's
Right.
innocent, and we had to pay him.
Right.
Like,
Right.
so we lost it. Like that's at the end. They don't come back with that same energy.
Right.
Yeah, the Friday afternoon news dump.
Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
They're
Absolutely.
like, yeah, let's just slide that in there. All
Right.
of our L's for the week we'll put in
Right.
over there. And then Monday we'll have a whole new set of claims and bullshit headlines to.
So
And then
it's
meanwhile,
wild.
like these emails are still going to federal employees. Give me your top 5 things you did this week,
I
even if
thought they
nobody's
stopped.
reading
I
them.
thought, yeah, I was gonna say, no one's answering them anymore, though, right? Like,
Nobody's answering them, but people are still getting them, and it's still, again, just like a um it's not quite gaslighting, but it's just manipulate. It's just messing with people.
yeah,
Like there was a moment when I was even having the higher levels of hostilities at the university, and uh I don't remember what I was leaning on policy wise, but I had to one point I had to tell my chair, like, you shouldn't be texting me and emailing me after work and on the weekend,
right,
because they were doing that just so you can't have that mental break. So they send you some nonsense on Saturday morning talking about, the door sign on your office was wrong or something. And it's like, even if you're not even supposed to be doing that.
right,
Just to create that kind of
right, right.
instability or whatever. Yeah.
So right, like when people are scared, they don't like. And I think
Exactly.
for me, I think this is really what it in part at least is about, right? It is at the least about creating a level of uncertainty for enough people that you can just do what you want to do because people are too afraid to speak out against anything that you do. Right.
Yeah.
So I just added because I forgot this should have been on there. Did you see this story about the Wisconsin judge?
No.
So this
Oh, boy.
is actually in line with what we're talking about. So like you can't make this stuff up, right? So the FBI has arrested a state judge in Wisconsin because basically they were trying to arrest somebody and the judge helped it was an immigrant and the judge, whatever, I haven't read the whole story, but apparently whatever
apprehended
she did,
in the courthouse. Dang.
Yeah, whatever she did prevented the apprehension. Like they had to chase the person outside because the judge did something that prevented them from getting the person in her courtroom. So they
She
came
intentionally
back and
misdirected federal agents away from the subject in her courthouse, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest, said Trump's FBI director.
So,
but they chased him down and put him in custody.
Right.
Wow.
So now, so Trump made the attempt early, like a little while ago, to say like, we have to start impeaching these Supreme Court judges who don't go along with the things that I want to do. And then he's been, there was these big headlines about the federal judges, the immigration judges that are being fired, but nobody, again, people don't read the articles, so they don't realize that these federal judges are under the same employment statutes as any other federal employee. So they're all probationary judges who have been, who at the end of their probation are not getting rehired for a regular job. And that's also to sow confusion because the immigration setup for courts is like outrageous. And then now here we come and we're arresting judges under claims that they are, impeding somehow ICE and federal agents' ability to arrest people.
So she apparently ordered immigration officials to leave the courthouse, saying they did not have a warrant signed by a judge to apprehend the suspect they were seeking, who was in court for other reasons. Prosecutors said that she became visibly angry when she learned that immigration agents were planning an arrest in her courtroom.
As she should be. Like the whole thing, like so much of this stuff. And look, I'm not a big proponent of the judicial system. Like it's all shit. But like you're not supposed to arrest somebody without a warrant. Like, isn't that the whole point? Isn't that the whole point? Right? So she rightfully was like, oh, y'all not doing that in my courtroom. Right? And then they came back and arrested her. So now if you're on the outside watching this happen, right? Like what do you think about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, like your first thought is like, well, I'm not trying to get arrested, like maybe the next time the judge will just be like, forget it, like just come get them, right? Because they don't want to be next.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Jared was right that it discourages more
right
resistance by other judges or anyone else.
Right. So the whole, so it all boils down to, once again, like, how much can we do to create enough uncertainty and chaos and fear that when all is said and done, like you you are too afraid to do the thing that you know you should be doing. But, yeah, it might be a risk for you. Right. And most people just aren't, that brave, and I don't say that to be judgmental or mean or whatever. Like, we live in a place where, your hope is that you can just get through the day, right? Like, you can just get to the next day. You can just get to, like, get to the next thing. And, it's just, but this has been ongoing forever, right? Like Latif says it, like, a lot of people have been arrested without due process, no warrant, wrong house, like this is commonplace here, right? Like this ain't new, right? But I feel like more people are seeing it happening in these other situations. And again, like I keep saying, like, it feels different, right? Like, it hits different for them because, oh man, look at this thing that happened in this situation. And you don't put the memory is so short that you don't put together that this is what happens consistently because our system is not built on justice.
That is again. I know. I think we've been saying a version of this every week and elsewhere, but I hope that, to as bad as things are getting, to the extent that what Trump and his crew are doing is different, even if just in form, I really do hope it doesn't get, that point that you just made doesn't get washed over. That all of this is possible because of how bad it was before, what others had left open as possibilities for a Trump-like presidency, and that if there's going to be an appropriate response, it has to push farther than where we were before. That, in other words, the response to this has to push not to just get us back to the version of this that people preferred, or to just where the door is open, but no one has yet walked through it. They at some point the door has to be closed. The construct may be destroyed and rebuilt, but certainly I just don't. So I that's something that I do keep wanting to raise the warning,
Yeah.
flag about, or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's
agree.
a lot of what happened this weekend, even where we're not all on the same page, what I appreciated about this weekend is that people are trying to think of new ways to engage in above board, overt, and nominally legal politics to address things as they are, but in different ways with a new level of imagination. And I at least appreciate that. And I would like to see more of us in these spaces doing more of that. What are our imaginative ways for above board, YouTube friendly conversation about what should be done next? And I think we touch on some of them here routinely, but I think that is, again, in the direction I'm hoping more of us will go.
I agree. And I think, having the conversations is important. Like, for as annoyed as I was in the room this morning, the reality is they had 200 people in a room representing multiple organizations, right? And so my frustration is more that when you have the capability of doing that, I want you to do more with that capability, right? Like, if I walk into a room and there are 200 people in the room and they're representing 150 different, organizations that, are in support of all kinds of things, like, to me, that is the time for creating a space for struggling to where you figure out, like, here is something real we can do, right? Or here is something that we can all, try to push towards. And they said that's what they were trying to do, but in the end, it doesn't, it just wasn't like, it wasn't that. It just wasn't that, right? And so I struggle often because, it is really hard to get people in a room, right? It's really difficult to get people to give up, hours or time or to travel or to do all the things to be in a room with other people to have these really necessary conversations. And it's also, there's not nearly enough of us, right? Who are actually attempting to do those things. And I feel often like the people who have the reach and the ability are doing like just enough to say they're doing something, but they're actually not doing anything that's going to result in anything meaningful. And so that gap between being able to call 200 people in a room and having those 200 people actually walk out of the room being energized to do something revolutionary, that gap is too much of a gap for me. And then I just end up being frustrated. And then I don't want to be there, which is not helpful. Like I probably should have a little more patience for these things, but I just I almost gave myself an aneurysm rolling my eyes. Right? Like it's just so frustrating. And I really want people to want to be braver. And you're not gonna become braver sitting in a room with a bunch of people who are willing to just, to talk and do the bare minimum, but they're not actually willing to go beyond that, right? So like if I'm sitting in a room and Ross Baraka is in the room and we're talking about why is there a facility, a private facility being opened in Newark to house 1,000 people who they are claiming should not be here, right? Because they're quote unquote illegal aliens, which I hate that term, right? But you're not talking to the person who's sitting in the middle of the room, who is the mayor of the city where the facility is being opened. Like, what are we doing? Like, how does that happen?
Well, I mean, my first thought is that if you're in a room with Ras Baraka, there's not going to be a lot of appropriate political analysis or calls to action happening
exactly.
in the first place.
Exactly.
So, I find those spaces intolerable myself.
Intolerable.
But again, I know there's a lot of room for criticism on this, but this is again why, whether it's the after party or whatever else we're talking about, or even what was happening at Morehouse this weekend, I'm increasingly, or maybe this is just a cliche of getting older, but I'm increasingly wanting more development of, again, above board activities among, produced and advocated by revolutionaries, if for no other reason, to give ourselves something to unify around, a particular set of political projects to unify around, build cohesion, build unity, build trust, and then potentially invite others who are not more willing to take certain risks or engage more militantly. But I think if we start with, that's why I keep saying, if we even just, again, even as what was happening this weekend, try to remind people that some of the people you have pictured on the wall here had some ideas that are never talked about.
Right.
We could just, and work more to suppress the desire among some of us to deny the more radical elements of the people that in the topic areas that we're talking about when we're engaging other people, to stop doing that, so that our imagination, that Fanon quote again, the goal of the colonizer is to destroy even dreams of liberty among the colonized, and the goal of the colonized is to something to develop, dream of every end possible for the colonizer, something like that. But the point being that our imagination has been, and I hate that I think of that South Park special series on Imagination Land when I think, and I hate to give them credit. I thought what they did with that was pretty impressive given their politics, but I still think makes a good point about we're not for our spaces, we're not. Our imaginations have been assaulted, and by all these various threats. So,
Right. So, yeah. So I get, I will continue to push on, because I feel like I don't really have much choice. I can't, I just don't have it in me to be the person who just quietly pretends like I don't know. And maybe I need to do a better job in some of these spaces of instead of stewing and rolling my eyes and being irritated of saying something, but I don't even know if these people are serious. You know what I mean? Sometimes I watch the movements of some of these folks, and it feels like a person who just wants to be known for being associated with a thing, right? And I have no desire for that. I just don't, I don't I literally have no, I get requests all the time for access to my Stop Cop City list. And people send requests as if they are expecting that I'm going to be like, oh no, I'm not sending that. If you send me if you send me a note that says, can I get access to your spreadsheet? You're getting my spreadsheet. Right. And I mean, it's appreciated if you say you got it from Is Your Life Better, but I really don't care. Right. Take it and go, right? Go do whatever it is that you think you need to do with the information that's going to be useful. And I got your email this morning, so I'll respond.
Yeah, I was just about to say you got another request.
Yeah, I'll respond with those links, because that spreadsheet with the military thing was a year ago, right? That was just me
well, one of them, I think one of the requests was for the stuff from Harvard that you had, I think, last week. But
yeah, the links. So, I keep everything. Every link that I've ever sent to you is still in that document.
Wow. Okay. I
keep everything, because sometimes when I'm writing, I'm like, wait, we talked about this on a show. So
it is a good idea.
Spreadsheet, and I look for it. And sometimes people ask me for stuff, and I'm like, oh wait, we talked about this on the show. And so, I find it and I share, right? I don't have an interest in, I don't want to be popular. Doing this work is not going to make me rich. I have no interest actually in being rich. I just want to be able to pay my bills, and, I have my own faults, right? I don't want to go to jail either, right? I'd like to continue to live also, right? It's not like I'm completely whatever happens, right? But at the same time, I just don't have an interest in being known for doing a thing. I even think it's it's wild to me that people watch this show. When somebody says oh, I watch your show, I'm like, you do? And I'm like, what? Right? Which is crazy, but I just I just want people to understand that there is a lot that they don't understand. And there's a lot that they're not paying attention to, because that is intentional, right? It is intentional to have you on this hamster wheel. When we do our every other, we're on week 5 now with our Green Party and PSL reading group on Socialist Reconstruction. We did chapters 6 and 7 last night, which is the transportation, housing, and medical and medicine. And every week every time we have the meetings, I find myself talking about the fact that we're all on these hamster wheels just trying to get through the day. And it's so intentional to keep us on the hamster wheel so that we can't fight for the things that would allow us to get off the hamster wheel.
And again, when you read Socialist Reconstruction, what I really, again, like about the book is that they offer, these are practical, real life, we could do them tomorrow, public policy reorganization of government solutions that you can advocate, again, theoretically, legally, even within existing electoral political party structures. So we would, debate about the efficacy of doing it that way. But the point is that we're not, at this point, none of us are asking any of us to do anything that, again, is nominally, theoretically threatening or illegal. It is, again, to the point of what we were just talking about earlier with Kehlani, there's no stopping them for redefining any action that we take as hostile in some way. But if just having a keffiyeh on the wall or a Palestinian flag on the wall is going to get you, then, but again, theoretically, we can say, look, if you want my vote, I want you to advocate I forgot what they called it in the book, but the housing department that's going to redirect tax rents away from landlords and give it, and pay off people's whatever. I forgot exactly what they said they were going to do with those offices. But the point is that should be part of what we were advocating for. Then in those spaces and those, where people gather to talk about that and build some trust and unity on some of this stuff. It's not called HUD. They have a new name for it.
It's a Department of Housing. But so in Socialist Reconstruction, what they want to do, the first thing they want to do, well, not first, but one of the major things they want to do is waive all mortgages, which I'm all for. I'm all for it. Let's do that. Let's waive all mortgages. They make it clear that it's not necessarily about removing people's access to properties that they use. So I actually found it very interesting that they said, the limit
everybody
would be
gets two
houses.
homes.
Everybody gets two, right? The other thing they talk about is creating a database of all the open homes, unsold, unused, open properties that are empty, because we have exponential amount of empty homes in comparison to the people who don't have homes. So you could actually house everybody and not have a houselessness crisis, because you could actually just put people in a house that's empty. So they outline all of these things, and maybe we should go back. You haven't finished the book, right? Like, you never finished.
No, I'm stuck. I'm waiting to do it. I have chapter 6 ready. I just haven't had the time, so I haven't gotten past chapter 6.
What? I'll do chapter 6 for you. I'll finish the series with you because I'm reading it. I'm
if
down.
You want. We can add it to the run sheet.
I'm down.
But yeah.
But what I appreciate, and you said this a little bit ago, like, what I appreciate about the book is it gives like actual, like, these apps exist to tell you exactly where they're empty homes. Instead of using the app to sell the home, use the home to give somebody a home who doesn't have a home. Brilliant.
And then and for all of the book is written also with this idea, I take it at least, with this idea that when you take this idea to your family or your workplace and you hear, well, how is this going to happen? How are they going to do that? How are they going to do that? They have answers for all that. Right. You get the money from over here, you take the money from over there, you do this. Right. This is the reason why. And they're like, we just need, so it's
right.
Listen, Lateef, I appreciate it. So let's just be clear. Legally speaking, I don't own the copyright. So you know, I don't think anyone can stop you from creating an audio file reading of the book, as long as you don't sell it. I don't think I would think it would be a great I would be honored. And if you and others want to take it and put it out
could you
there.
ask your publishers if somebody could do an
I
audio
have.
version? And they said no?
They,
Really? Oh,
they
that's
don't want to do it.
wild.
I don't know why. I don't know. My suspicion is that the rung of the rung or the lane I'm published in within Palgrave is not set up for that level of promotion, and so that's why I don't get, like, I got a standard book cover. I don't get, there was no bells and whistles. There's no,
Understood.
So
Understood.
but
Okay.
but in terms of the work getting out there, if I would be honored if folks did something like that, and if I can help, I'm down to do it. We just wouldn't, it would just be, for the people.
Well, I mean, your first version was for the people.
It's free. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think as long as we're not selling it, I don't think it's a problem. And in many ways, it should be seen as promotion for the book itself, so, but, anyway, we could, I'm down.
All right.
But yeah.
Yeah. So I know we got off track a little bit, but I want to find ways to encourage people to just go outside of their comfort level and to be more comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think is like the best way to put it. I want people to be more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like I think that's the best way to put it.
Right on.
So since you pulled it up real quick, so the Johnston, Rhode Island story. So I don't know if you remember this story. We covered it very, very briefly a while back. So in Johnston, Rhode Island, there was a set of acreage that was being set aside for affordable housing. And the mayor of Johnston, Rhode Island decided that he was going to take eminent domain of that property and instead build a public safety facility instead of housing. And when we talked about it, and it was not, I don't think it was an in-depth conversation. I remembered when the announcements were being made, it was essentially, so this town, Johnston, Rhode Island, has a high medium income level. Most people own their homes. So essentially anybody who cannot afford to buy a home in Johnston, Rhode Island has to commute into Johnston, Rhode Island to do all the things, right, that the people need done. So like, if you're cutting grass or you're cleaning houses or you're serving coffees, it's probably more on the likely side that you can't buy a house in Johnston. And so this housing was supposed to be to create a space for people to live in Johnston who were working in Johnston, but who could not afford to buy in Johnston. And the mayor was like, nah, we're not doing that. And he really said, like, we don't want to become like a place where people can rent anyway. Like, we want people to be able to buy their homes. And so, but the land was owned by a family. Like, it wasn't like a
public property.
Land. It wasn't public property. It wasn't public use. This was land that was owned, obviously, it's not really their land, but land that was owned by a family. And they wanted it to be housing. And one of the reasons they wanted it to be housing is because there are people in the family who work in Johnston and can't afford to buy homes. So the theory was, if we could do affordable housing, like, our family can stay in town and stay in Johnston. And so So they did the eminent domain, and now that family is suing because they're basically like, yo, we did this because it was supposed to be housing. What do you mean it's going to be a public safety facility? So now there's this fight happening between the family and the town, right? The town leadership, council, mayor, whatever. And one of the things that they did when they did the vote was, they didn't give enough time. They didn't allow people in the room. And so that article that you pulled up was the story of the city council being forced to do a revote on whether or not the mayor could take eminent domain of this property. But the revote was just a revote. It wasn't open to public conversation. They lined the doors with firefighters and police officers to not allow people to come in. So it was essentially like, okay, we'll go through this process of revoting, but we already know what the answer is going to be because we already voted on it, and we're still not going to allow anybody from the town to have any role in this. So it's just an interesting, like, watching how how this is all playing out. It's very interesting to see how it is playing out. And Jamon says something really important. I need y'all to understand this about Rhode Island. In the city of Providence, there's a homeless person on almost every corner. And there is. Like, Providence, the disparity in being poor in Providence and having money in Providence is wild. And Johnston is about, I think it's like 11 miles, maybe 20 minutes outside of Providence. So what you probably have is a lot of people who are commuting from Providence and in between Providence who are going to Johnston to do those jobs that the people who own houses don't want to do. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's the history of most projects. It's the housing for the workers,
right?
Initially, so that the wealthy who they work for don't have to live near them or hear them or see them, or
we don't have to see you outside of you coming in to clean my toilet, right?
Like the dude told me in the Navy, he can clean these toilets, but he can't use them.
Right.
And I was like, nah.
That's wild.
Nope. And that's why my time was short-lived. It's like, so I gotta clean this and then walk all the way down the other side of the ship to use the toilet. Nah, bro.
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
And that's literally what they're doing. So I'm gonna keep an eye on this Johnston, Rhode Island thing. One, because the town is named and it's my last name, which is wildly wild when I think about it. But also because, a mayor coming out and saying like, we're not gonna give housing, we're gonna increase policing instead, is also like, oof. Like, is that what we're doing now? Like that's the thing. That's the next step in the expansion of the police state is no housing, but you can get more police.
The poors are rising up to try to do something and create housing for themselves. Nah, we need to respond to that with violence. More police.
Yeah.
So
craziness. All right. So next up on the run sheet, there's AFRICOM testimony. I wish you could have gotten to the run sheet before we did.
Yeah,
this testimony is wild. It's wild. My man's, and I don't know, like, Lord, I also just want Black people to stop allowing themselves to be the face of imperialism and colonialism. And I really want it to stop. I want it to stop. And it's just not, it's never going to stop. It's just never
the end. First one they put in charge is a Morgan State alumnus. Yeah.
Really?
General Kip Ward. So who's this guy? They're keeping
right. So there's been an ongoing conversation because Trump has said that they're questioning the need for things like AFRICOM,
which is fun.
And it's hysterical because like, what do you say to that? Like, nah, you got to keep it. Like, no, like, yeah, there should be no AFRICOM. Like, shut it down. The problem, of course, is like, they'll shut down what's called AFRICOM and then continue to steal the resources and kill the people anyway, just under a different name. So, it's not really shutting down the problem. It's just like, reassociating it with something new, which is not helpful at all. Yep. But if you read like just some of the things that he says during this testimony is crazy. So this is Michael Langley, who is the commander of the U.S. AFRICOM. He testified earlier in the month before the Senate Armed Services Committee, because again, they're in this process of trying to, they're hearing about these security concerns and the future of whether or not the U.S. can continue to steal all the resources or help to steal all the resources from the continent. So under the section of AFRICOM's mission, it talks about like his opening statement. And General Langley declared that everything we do at the United States AFRICOM has one overarching goal in mind: achieving peace through strength. This requires three things: a clear understanding of national security threats, a robust and dependable network of like-minded allies and partners, and appropriate resourcing to match military requirements. He goes on to say that Africa remains a nexus theater from which the United States cannot shift its gaze. I know people get mad when I laugh, but y'all, this dude is wildin'. Like, what are we talking about right now? Right? It is home to terrorists who take advantage of conditions in Africa to grow and export their ideology. ISIS, the Islamic State, controls its global network from Somalia. It's where the Chinese Communist Party actively works to change the international rules-based order as a stepping stone to become the regional hegemon. And it's where the Russian Federation seizes opportunities created by chaos and instability. Now, to protect our homeland and United States interests, we must deter these nations and these malign characters from their goals on the African continent. Bruh.
I mean that, he's
I mean, he's doing what they do, right? Like,
it's not like they trying to get to the gun line, boss.
Right. Like, he's doing what they do. Like, it's not crazy. They doing what they do. But I mean, I'm like, sometimes every now and again, I read these things and I almost want to be shocked at like the audacity of the United States, who consistently works to create and sow chaos, to actually send somebody to sit in a room and to talk about the chaos that other people are. You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is what I'm talking about. So goodbye. It is a joke, and that's why I'm laughing. So if it's annoying, goodbye. See you later. Go watch something else. The reality is that this system is wild. So I laugh because it's fucking ridiculous. Like, this is absurd.
Oh, yeah, right? Megatron is annoying.
Definitely annoying, and I won't be highlighting them anymore. Oh,
no, they gone. They good. No, because they did that stuff last time. I was so whack.
So I just, all like this whole test of, the counterterrorism and like all these things, as if the U.S. has not been party to all of it, has not been behind the scenes for all of it, has not been sowing all, like, this is what the U.S. has always done. So for this man, and of course he's Black, to sit at the table and to do the testimony to express how important it is that we maintain our role via AFRICOM. Like, what are we even talking about right now?
Oh, this is fascinating.
Oh, it's fascinating.
So I mean, because again, what he's doing is trying to justify AFRICOM's existence and keep the budget lines open and keep the Trump administration from shutting them down.
Right.
Which again creates that contradiction because, of course, AFRICOM shouldn't exist.
Right.
And so it's I know Ori was talking about the liberal counterinsurgency is being attacked by Trump, which again I think is a fascinating contradiction worthy of despite some's reaction to it, a little bit of a smile and some laughter at the contradiction.
Right.
But to your point, the goal shouldn't be to get back to a situation where a Democratic Party is in full support of funding and expansion of AFRICOM and sees its mission as a good one. So,
right. And I also wonder, like just what I said, like, okay, you're quote unquote shutting down AFRICOM, but what are you actually going to do? Because you're not going to pull your bases. Right? You're not going to stop stealing the resources. You're not like, that's not part of the plan. So what is the plan actually? To just say it's not going to be called AFRICOM anymore and pull the black man so that you could say you're complying with your own like anti-DEI stance, and then you put a white person in charge of whatever you rename AFRICOM to be so you can continue to have your bases and to steal the resources from the continent? Like, is that what the actual plan is? Because I'm curious.
I don't know. That's why they're asking, like, what happens if AFRICOM is disbanded, and asking folks if they'll have the capacity to step in and fight all the terrorism. And they're like, nah.
Right.
It would be a stretch.
But this testimony is crazy. And this is the same person, by the way, who made that statement about Ibrahim Traore from Burkina Faso being like the greatest threat to.
But Trump has given Langley the authority to launch airstrikes at his own discretion.
Right.
In Somalia. So to your point, you're not getting rid of the tactical capability. So what is it that you're doing? So you're going to say, don't call it AFRICOM, but you have the license to drop as many drones as you want.
Right.
Just don't call it AFRICOM.
Right.
All right.
Right. And then he's got like people like he's sending his friends to Africa to like do. It's just very, very, again, like one more thing to question, like what is the purpose? What is the actual ultimate purpose of this? Is it just to create a soundbite and a headline, right? And then what?
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the whole point. Chaos and whatever, So speaking of chaos, the federal employees that have been fired, a federal judge said you have to rehire them. So then they started the process of rehiring them. And then the Supreme Court said, okay, wait, like pause on the rehiring. Maybe you don't have to rehire them. And so they started firing them again. And then we have to wait now for the next thing to come. But they've halted. So They halted that. So that's happening with the workers. And then on the other end, you have this happening. Because Trump wrote an order to say, like, there's going to be no more bargaining, collective bargaining for federal employees. And so I guess he thought that, his executive order was going to be enough. So then, of course, all the federal unions started suing. And so this is one of the groups, one of the federal workers groups that has multiple lawsuits going to prevent the end of collective bargaining for federal workers. And then last night, that the first article was a judge that said, like, you can't do that. You can't just say we're not going to collectively bargain with workers. And so, so that battle will now be ensuing, to determine whether or not this whole thing with collective bargaining can be stopped.
I mean, salute to these folks, 1,000 lawyers who've been trained and ready to provide pro bono counsel to federal workers.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice to see. But I mean, I don't even know what to say. I hope that, but again, to my point, it would be, I hope that it would be great if the AFL-CIO and others became more aggressive in response to this.
Right.
To advocate for more, I mean, because again, none of this should have even been possible.
Right.
Is really the point I'm getting at. And so I again, just the same thing. I hope we get to I hope this leads to some sort of advanced push.
I hope so. I mean, and the only thing that I see is at least people are annoyed, right? Like, they're bothered by what's happening. But people were bothered in 2017 too, right? And that led us right back to Biden. And so,
that's the thing.
that's the thing. That's the part right there that I really hope we can find some way to not just have it be like, we just got to go back to the Dems now.
Mm-hmm.
Because that can't be the reasonable solution either. Like, it's totally unreasonable to think that the answer to stopping the craziness that's happening now is to go back to a different version of craziness, because that's how this craziness happens.
That's it.
And then the last thing, although, I mean, there's an article in there. Did you see the 2-year-old? They deported a woman and her children. But the 2-year-old was actually born in the United States and therefore is a naturalized citizen and therefore is not actually should not actually be able to be deported. And the father, who is also a U.S. citizen, was making the rounds to try and prevent the 2-year-old from being deported with the mother. And so now this question of like, do y'all actually know who you're deporting when you deport people is becoming like a even more commonly asked question, which, I mean, I feel like should have been a question a long time ago, because I'm sure they don't usually. But, there seems to be now multiple cases of people who are getting rounded up in these sweeps or whatever have you. Somebody was telling me this morning that ICE was on New Jersey Transit, like, just randomly questioning people. Right? And so, when these things are happening, and, you have the gentleman from Maryland who's still in El Salvador, who shouldn't be there, who everyone says shouldn't be there, but they're not doing anything to get the man out. And the president down there was basically like, nah, like, nah, we're not going to send him back. We good. Y'all can come do an interview though. Like you can send your senator down from Maryland and he can sit at a table and, get there.
Yeah, that's wild.
So it's wild. And these are the stories that when people say like, see, it's worse, like it's hard to get people to understand like yes, it feels worse, but I promise you that is not the first baby that got deported with their parent who was quote unquote like illegally here, right? Because we had the whole family separation, like the cages, like all these things have existed for much longer than Trump, right? And so when I respond and say, I understand why it feels worse to you, but you also need to understand that because of the things that have always existed, that is how these things happen now. And you can't just skip to now and be outraged because of what happened today if you're not cognizant of all the things that have happened prior to 2025. So, I don't know. But the last thing, and this will be a real, this will be a highlight. I'm lying. It's not a highlight. It's also amazingly Jesus, what's happening, right? So, right now in 2025, we are ahead of schedules for police killings. So, as folks know, I follow the Mapping Police Violence website regularly.
Wow. Wow.
Right.
0 days this year when police did not kill people. Wow. Oh, and the native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders are getting it. What's going on there?
And that, I feel like that 2.8 times is high. I feel like it was like 2.7 before. So we're going up. We're moving up, y'all. We're moving up. And then
only the Asians are safe. This is.
And the police killed 6 more people through March.
Yeah, this is what it looks like all the time. The line goes up.
The line goes up.
It's
last year we almost didn't beat the previous year, but they made sure to make up for it at the end of the year, so they caught up and surpassed it.
It was like, get out there and kill some folks.
Right.
Wow.
This website is honestly depressing as hell. It really is. And only because it's like we just still doing this. We just still doing this. Just pretending like this is okay. And then you have mayors shutting down housing projects so that you can expand the police state.
I saw a request for the link in the chat. I'll drop it in there.
Okay.
But it's mappingpoliceviolence.org.
I really recommend that folks. I mean, if look, it is not a fun thing. It's not a fun thing to track. But every now and again I pull it up just so I can see how absurd it is. That we're now almost the end, that we went 3 months and there was not one day in the first quarter of the year that someone did not get killed by a police officer. Like, that is a wild statistic, right? You still have people being beat to death. You have people dying while incarcerated with folks pretending like no one knows what's happening. You have people getting all kinds of response from the armed agents of the state because they don't like genocide.
So listen, unfortunately, I got to get moving here, but
let's wrap. We started late, we're ending early. Yeah. It's all Jared's fault, y'all.
It's all my fault. But I do want to add to the blame of Jared and just leave you all with this image here as a preparation for Monday's continuation of our 100 years of Malcolm X. This was an event that just happened Friday or Thursday at Malcolm X College. And I don't know if folks can see here at the bottom of this financial literacy fair, they quote Malcolm as saying, "The future belongs to those who prepare for it today." So wow. Financial literacy, y'all. So anything else you want to announce? Yeah, I just thought we would end on that happy
end
image
on
right there.
That happiness. There you go. No, I mean, I guess we'll figure out Review Crew to talk about Sinners. That'll come up soon. We rescheduled Todd and Ntume to come on the 17th. Next week, we have the folks coming from Racism in the Arts to talk about what's going on. So we're going to have that conversation, which, by the way, there's a brother out in Rhode Island that I'm going to get on who's doing a very interesting installation that he wants to use one of my writings in. And he has a piece. He showed me a piece from his installation. He was like, "I need Jared to see this."
Word.
Yeah. So we'll figure that out. And I think
moving into the art world.
Yeah, I think for now, that's it. I was trying to pull together a webinar on policing, prisons, and immigration, but Ori's not available and Alex Vitali's not available, and I cannot get a lawyer to agree to come on. I think things are just a little too treacherous right now. So I'm gonna hold off on that one. But if folks in New Jersey want to mark their calendars, on May 7th at 6 p.m. at the Hub in Orange, New Jersey, we are doing a book release for the book on Martin Sostre. That's
right. I have that.
And so,
did it come out already? I got the pre-order for Kindle. Do I have it
already?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if it's been released yet, but we'll have a bunch of books and the author's going to be there. And so, folks in Jersey and they can make it to Orange on May 7th. That'll be the next in-person thing that's going. So
that's what's up. Well, listen, Renee, thank you very much. Another great show. Salute to everybody. Please do like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon. Links are all in the show description. Make sure you have the bell rung so you don't miss all the things that are offered on the platform. I will be back here Monday morning with Malcolm X and financial literacy. God damn. And anyway. Thanks again, Renee. Salute to the undefeated chat. Peace, everybody. Only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. And we'll catch you next time with more Saturday with Renee.